Hi, so in this video, I'm going to talk about a whole range of things. I want to talk about neurodiverse. I want to talk about, and in that I will lump in also ADHD, Asperger's, attention deficit of any kind, perhaps personality disorder. I'm going to put in a lot of things in one group, but I don't mean to use neurodiverse for all of them. Now, being neurodiverse is not having a deficiency in some way, but being different. Okay, your brain functions differently. Now, I've previously spoken about how when we're disconnected, we don't have the high moods, we don't feel fully invested in life, that kind of thing. But there is also a whole lot of beings on this planet that are disconnected because of other reasons. And these reasons can be because they're first timers or very new in their incarnation. So first, second, third time into Earth and still adjusting to be human. They can also be volunteers that came to come and create a difference, but now they're here, are very ensconced in the stubbornness of the choices that they've made. So let me explain. If you are currently a person in your 40s or 50s, and I'm going to say very early 60s too, you are the generation that is bringing up, if you've born children or adopted or, taken care of other people's children, they've all come to you because of a soul contract. You are the people that are holding space for this generation that has creative minds, okay? That has a difference in the way they're thinking, but not a deficiency, all right? Now, this generation I'm speaking to, you're the ones that are facing a lot of resistance in stepping out into your purpose, your passion, leading the way that you know you should be and could be, but you're stopping yourself because you're really rooted in self-limitations, imposed limitations, I would add, perceived blocks. And none of these are real, by the way, because I've worked with thousands of people and I recognize these aren't real. We've come past them very easy. Also, centuries old ancestral karmic trauma that's kept you in the drama bonded to drama, which means that you're trying to free yourself of generations of suppression and drama and toxic behavior that you're not stepping out and doing the things that you're meant to be doing. Okay, so if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, this will be you, whether you've just given birth or brought children into your life that are highly functioning and may appear to be scatty. And let me explain this. I've done lots and lots of work with children like this in the past. Did lots of work on Zoom with them and it's so much fun. But we are also finding those relationships very challenging because we're the mid-ground. Our parents are very stuck in their ways, didn't have the emotions, weren't expressing the emotions in the majority of cases. This generation's 40s, 50s, 60s, very early 60s, we're the ones that learned to feel. We're learning to feel. We're learning to create independence. We're learning to create new paths, right? We are changing, or we were the ones that really created the change, okay? So we will be rationally emotional is the words I'm hearing, rationally emotional. Then comes a generation that are in their 30s that are recognizing that there's something different and catching on to this earlier, but don't actually know how to get onto that footing. Then we've got the 20-somethings who are high-functioning creatives, okay? So if you've got children in your 20-somethings or teens, I'm going to say 20-somethings prior, you will find that as parents of this age group, we're struggling. We're really struggling. And it's not a one-time thing. This is because a lot of these young ones are first timers. Because the people in their 40s, 50s and 60s are taking so long to pull their finger out and get going and move beyond this and have an acceptance that we can do this quicker, we're finding discord between the younger generations, right? We're not bonding with them that easy. And in fact, we're getting short-tempered, infuriated, we're getting tested, we have a lack of understanding about how they function, and it is a real difference. And in return, they're entitled, they're having tantrums, they can't express themselves, they value other relationships higher than the ones of their mother and father. It's happening, right? Yes, part of that is societal, but there are a lot of new beings on this planet that don't know how to human. But with them, they come with the gifts of creativity, expansive thinking, very intuitive, learning how to make money much younger. They're not bound to the constructs that our age group has been in for so long, and they will be the nomads and want to have different ways of working and not want to confine themselves to the 9 to 5. They're the ones that radically changing everything, because they're like, well, hang on, we don't like this. So there's a lot of things going on here. So let me have a look at my notes and give you this in some sort of order. So having worked with a lot of children in this area, I'm going to say to you that they find it very difficult to be in this incarnation, more so than us, okay? They also find a situation where they feel misunderstood, right? So there's lots of psychological diagnosis going in for bipolar or personality disorder. Let's take the spiritual line to that, because I'm not going to knock that. That has a place. But spiritually, they're like, I'm in this human bodysuit and I do not feel comfortable. I don't know how to human, don't like this experience. I know I signed up with it on some level, but yeah, I'm not going to do it. So the younger generation who are functioning like this also are quite lazy. They can either be, again, the polarity, they can either be very, very creative or lazy because they're just like, yeah, I don't like this human suit. I'm not making it work, okay? But they are highly gifted. So us as parents, we will butt heads with them. There's several ways that we need to look at this. We can, of course, help them, but they're more likely to take help from elsewhere than from us. We will also be blamed for a lot, because they'll be like, well, you're the one that brought me into this world. Why am I here? So we will find that we get a lot of the blame. Okay, that will change in time. But they're very stubborn in their entitled. Well, if you brought me here, you can help me. You can make sure I get through this life. And their sense of ownership is handed over to their parent. But they are very clever. They're very bright. They're very grounded. They're very compassionate. They're very of that light vibe, right? And they're finding it very uncomfortable to be in their bodies. And yes, social media has a part to play in this. However, body dysmorphia, feeling uncomfortable, checking out, not wanting to be in the body is going to be very rife in these individuals. So on the one hand, they're very creative and have huge assets that they've come into this incarnation with, and on the other hand, they're like, I don't like this at all, right? So there's a way of finding themselves, but they're going to do it really quickly. They'll do it quicker than the 40, 50, 60 somethings. They'll do it far quicker than we do. They'll adapt to this energy, and it's needed, that energy, because there's an element, there's a percentage of our population that's not native to Earth, right? There's quite a lot of us that are starseeds, light workers, way showers, and there's quite a lot of us, there's a percentage of us that were born onto this planet, okay? So that are native to Earth, that came from Earth. But the ones that came in to help, which was the 40, 50, 60 somethings, we've been so slow about it. We haven't moved it as quickly as we needed to because of the karma, the weight of the karma, the ancestral stuff. A new wave has had to come in and push us, right? Push our buttons. And in doing so, when they test us as parents, when we find we don't resonate, they're pushing us to step up. They're doing the job that we aren't doing quick enough, that we've left till later, right? And I'm very much testament to this experience as well. So they come in with a higher sense of sensory powers. They're very sensitive. They're more sensitive than we were, okay? To sound, to noise, to vibration, to things, right? They're also very influenced initially until they recognize what they are. And they experience the world differently. So their perception, the way they see, even they will see things differently to the older generation. They will feel things differently, and actually how they transmute vibrations are differently. So think sound, right? Sound and emotional resonance is very, very different. Sound particularly, they're hearing differently. Now sound resonance is one of the greatest healers. So they, being the light beings that don't speak a vocal language, and they're on telepathy and they're on sound resonance, are carrying it onto here, experiencing life differently here, okay? So they operate on different frequencies and have so much to bring if we can learn how to communicate with them. Generational differences still get in the way here. And if their world can see and recognize them. Now, there's a lot of this type of young people who have been put on medication to calm that higher sensory down, because in the physical body it's really hard to channel it. So if you've got autism, it may they may need more sensory things in different ways, okay? But they are also being given medication to suppress it, and that's not necessarily, in my view, I'm not a medical expert, but the right thing to do, okay? But it does appeases them, but it also numbs them. And when it numbs them, they can't fully experience the sensory aspect of this. So if you're a mother of a child like this, I'm not saying take them off meds, that's not my advice. Each example and experience is different, but start adding in different ways of experiencing life and show them different ways, because what I do know to be true is if we understand their role and help them in that way, it can, if they're willing, because the older ones and the 20 somethings aren't as willing to see another way, they become dependent on medications. So we can catch them young, we can help them transmute that energy in a different way, okay? So the view of the world is different from us as well, but so much of how they see it is on a similar vibration as well. But what they're trying to do is translate the differences into the patterning and the conditioning that we as parents has put them in, and it doesn't fit anymore. It doesn't fit. We cannot continue to raise our children in that field because they're having a whole different experience to the one that we're having, okay? If we think about we're going to crystalline bodies, they're coming into this world almost in a crystalline state, and then we're trying to suppress that with our conditioning, our rules, our way of living, and they're trying to fight that. So there's a big difference in I don't feel like I fit in there, and that's where it comes from. They're very, very light in their body and they find it very difficult to adapt, okay? Yeah, I've written here that sometimes they're everywhere and nowhere. So they see everything but don't digest anything. So they might be very scatty, but what they're doing, as I'm hearing as I'm saying this, they're learning to, because they have the ability to tune into different vibrations, they're learning in which one is the one that sits with them. And that's the thing they're having the trouble with. It's like a radio receiver receiving more than one channel to one frequency. You got an overlay of maybe music and voice. And that's what they're doing. They're hearing it in a dual sense. And that's what they find difficult with. So it's poor concentration when they're younger, very scatty, feel like they're daydreaming, don't feel like they concentrate. If this was your kid or is your kid now, this is what's going on, okay? They're learning how to adapt to that, and that's not easy for them. So learning ways to be calmer, to really understand what they're here to do. And that's difficult for a young child. It's a lot of responsibility. So to bring that through in a sense of play is going to be really important. And us 40, 50, 60 somethings, we've lost the ability to play. So it's really important that we tune into that frequency, whether it is dancing, whether it is humour, whether it's poking fun, whether it's generally just being jovial. You will relate better to them. But because we've lived a life of trauma, we're like, well, why don't you understand? Why don't you understand? But they're not on that frequency, mismatched frequencies. So it can happen quite a lot. Okay, so there's more of them now coming in than before, because they come from a different paradigm. They're here to change the paradigm for us. Okay, their insights are out of the box, they're expansive and they're colorful. So when we see, if anyone's ever done any plant medicine or hallucinogenics, you will have seen a kaleidoscopic range of colors that you could not even express, that you couldn't give names to, that you can't determine, right? This is their experience that they're living here. So they therefore can't communicate with us on a level where we're trying to rationalize it and humanize it. And they're like, I've just come into this and I'm seeing this in a whole level. I don't know what you're talking about. So this is going to happen quite a lot. They adopt many characters, speaking in many voices, because they are everything and cannot be fixed to one being. So you will find that it's almost like a comedic character that can have very, very different personas, like an actor even. You will find that that's them, and that makes them inconsistent in their personality, hence the bipolar diagnosis, the personality disorder. They do not have a personality disorder. They just have an ability to be many things at once. And the more of you in your 40s, 50s and 60s that also recognize this will realize that this is you also, socially, verbally, in many situations. You can flex between all of them, and they've come into this world doing this, right? It's taken us a lifetime to learn how to do this, but they're already ready with this. Okay, and they'll express all parts, and it will be inconsistent. Whereas with us, we're learning consistency. They will be like, yeah, I'm high 1 minute, I'm low next minute. I've got this personality going, I'm thinking this, and there's a million things in my head, right? This is them. They come from that vastness where they're learning to confine it to a singular thing, i.e. be human, and that's very difficult for them, okay? So what can you do with that? Encourage them with their expression. It's beautiful, opening their viewpoints up and seeing that, because we as the older generation are blinkered. So they're bringing us new vistas and visions for us, enabling us to see things from many different viewpoints, and that's needed, although it can be very difficult if you're a parent right now, okay, because you don't know where you stand with these younger generation. And that's okay, that's all right. We just need to allow them to be, because we can be all of the things rather than being the one thing, okay? And in doing that, they're either very highly social or they're introverts, and there's a lot of introverts right now, a lot of introverts. They find it much better to be in their own world, because communication with other people becomes difficult and testing, and that's when you find out they may be drinking or using other methods to opt out a little bit, because that is far easier for them to relax into, because it's very light and it's not ensconced into adulting and doing humans. So that's why you might find them checking out. So how can you make it more creative, more open, more playful for them? Because that's going to make them feel more comfortable without a constraint of, here's a condition I'm going to place on you, okay? Because we need to learn to be different, okay? And our soul is all of these things too, except they're expressing it in their human and we expressing it in our soul, and we're a bit more kind of grounded with it, you know, we're a bit more blinkered with it, if you like, and they're showing us actually what we are, that we are all of these facets, okay? For them, they need to find their roots, because anchoring is difficult. So they need to find what works for them to root their energy, and more often than not, they're not rooted, they're all up here somewhere. So we need to find ways to root them into their energy and find the version of them that they feel most comfortable with, okay? And you can do that as a parent by being freer with your versions of who you think you are to make it acceptable for them, okay? This will make your experience far more palatable, and you will feel less resistance from them and yourself. So they're bringing in a whole new breed of human, needed because we there's a lot of us that are really stuck in ancestral trauma, that we have to deal that whole block of that before we even get into the higher vibes, right? Before we even learn to do that. They've come into the higher vibes for first timers. When I mean first timers, I think I need to clarify that. I'm hearing they're either in their first or second incarnation, okay? They're not native to Earth, and they're starseeds. They come from other planets, and they've been recruited to shift the vibration, specifically here to shift the vibration and take us to the awakening that we're meant to be experiencing right now. Because the rest of us are old souls and we're stuck in karma. So it's hard to move beyond that. So when you get a fresh-faced new human, fresh human if you like, first incarnation, there's lots of confusion, but there's also lots of radical change that they'll bring into this world if you allow it. I'm also hearing on this note that I have to mention the gender issue, because they are also not wanting to be known as a specific gender, because they have come from places where gender has not been a thing. All right, it's not been male or female in every situation. And if they're new in and they've been the ascended masters and doing the roles up there, they will might be a little bit confused about the body that they're in, okay? Not recognizing that they're in a physical body and not recognizing the constraints around it. So that's what we're dealing with at the moment. And I really wanted to bring this up because the whole parental child dynamic is taking a massive shift, not only for us 40, 50, early 60s to our young ones, but with our parents, because we're the bridge between that change. We're the bridge that makes it really happen in this set of lifetimes that are going on right now. So I hope that's given you some clarity. Please do share if you're experiencing this with your children, if you're currently experiencing this in any other capacity. I'd love to hear. And now I wait for your comments, and I'll see you in the next video.